In the spring of 2023, the most followed man on Earth stopped everything to write a short message about someone who had been gone for years. Nobody had asked. There was no anniversary, no interview, no reason. He was running rocket companies, car companies, and the most chaotic website in the world. Every minute of his life was spoken for, and still he stopped and remembered. The message was funny in his dry way, but read it slowly and it is something else entirely. A man saying goodbye, long after the goodbye had already happened. Because the someone was not a partner, not a friend, not family. It was a dog. Small, stubborn, 15 years old, named after a philosopher and holding a place in this man's heart that almost nothing else on earth has ever been allowed to occupy. This is the story of softness. And it begins with a lonely boy and ends with a little dog who feared absolutely no one. Long before the fame, Elon Musk shared his life with a Yorkshire Terrier, a tiny dog, barely bigger than a loaf of bread, with the outsized confidence that only tiny dogs possess. He named him Hobbs, after Thomas Hobbes, the gloomy old philosopher who once described life as nasty, brutish, and short. It was a joke, of course. The dog was small. The dog was fierce. The name fit perfectly, and its owner told the story for years with visible delight. He would warn visitors, "Watch out for the dog," and the visitors would look down, see a creature the size of a slipper, and burst out laughing. And then, more often than not, Hobbs would march over and bite them on the ankle. Picture that for a moment. Powerful people, investors, executives, arriving to meet one of the most intimidating men in business and being ambushed at the door by 5 pounds of fearless Yorkshire Terrier. There is something wonderful in it. In a life full of people who calculated every word around him, here was one small soul who calculated nothing, feared nothing, and answered to no one. Hobbs stayed at his side for 15 years. 15 years through chapters of that life we can only guess at, through triumphs and collapses the whole world watched, and through private hours no one watched at all. Think about what those 15 years contained. The dog did not know his owner was becoming famous. The dog did not read a single headline, good or bad. When the world called the man a genius, the dog was unimpressed. When the world called him a fraud, the dog was equally unimpressed. Morning after morning, the dog wanted exactly the same things: food, a walk, an ankle to guard, and him. The whole world wanted something from him. The dog only wanted him. For a man whose every relationship, business, family, romantic, carried terms and expectations and the constant possibility of disappointment, it is hard to overstate what that must have meant. Perhaps that little dog was one of the only living creatures on earth with whom he never once had to perform. And then, at 15, Hobbs died. We do not know the details of that day, and perhaps we should not. What we know is this: the man told no one. There was no public statement, no photograph, no tribute. One of the most talkative public figures alive went completely silent about it, the way certain men of a certain kind go silent about the things that hurt the most. That silence would last for years, and it would finally break in the strangest possible week of his life. Grief does strange things to a home. Some people never bring another animal through the door. He did the opposite. In the years that followed, his house slowly filled up. There was Gatsby, a big, gentle rescue dog named after the doomed romantic hero of an old American novel. There was Marvin the Martian, a scruffy little dog named after a cartoon spaceman, because of course the man obsessed with Mars would name his smallest dog after a Martian. There was a cat, elegant and aloof, named Schrödinger after the most famous thought experiment in physics. Later, improbably, there would even be a hedgehog named Shrub. Notice the names: a philosopher, a novel, a physicist, a spaceman. This is a man who, as a lonely boy in South Africa, famously hid from a painful world inside books, and who now, as a grown man, wraps the creatures he loves in the language of those same books. Perhaps the boy who found shelter in stories grew into a man who gives his animals the names of everything that once sheltered him. In 2018, he introduced them to the world himself in a single sentence that reads like a father counting his children. A big dog called Gatsby, a little dog called Marvin the Martian, and a cat named Schrödinger. The dogs, it is said, were even taken to see a famous dog trainer who reported, to nobody's surprise, that they had wonderful personalities. Then came the moment when this private tenderness quietly changed the world, and hardly anyone noticed it happening. In the autumn of 2018, an ordinary dog owner sent him a public message. The idea was simple and heartfelt. Cars sit in parking lots, dogs wait inside, and on a warm day, waiting can turn deadly. Couldn't his electric cars that were essentially computers, keep a dog safe and cool while the owner ran an errand? It was one message among the millions he receives, from a stranger, about dogs. His answer came back almost immediately, and it was one word long: yes. Within months, his engineers had built it. They called it dog mode, a parked car that keeps itself at a gentle temperature, watching over the animal inside, while the big screen reassures worried passers-by that the dog is comfortable and the owner is on the way. Today, in parking lots all over the world, on hot afternoons, there are dogs dozing safely in cool cars because of that one exchange. Think about what actually happened there. A man buried under factories and rockets and lawsuits read a stranger's plea about waiting dogs and moved real engineers, real money, real machines to answer it. He has made 1,000 promises in his life and broken his share of them. That one he kept in a matter of months. Some loves, it turns out, get answered faster than others. And then there are the small moments, the ones that tell you more than any grand gesture ever could. In January of 2021, the richest man in the world went shopping online. Not for art, not for an island. He found a small handmade shop and bought a tiny knitted hat, a little woolen replica of a cartoon spaceman's helmet, for Marvin, his smallest dog. He even mentioned it publicly, sounding genuinely pleased, and the tiny shop was flooded with delighted customers overnight. Sit with that image for a moment. A man who commands rockets, hunched over a screen late at night, choosing a hand-knitted hat for a little dog. Whatever else is true about him, and much is, that is not the behavior of a man with an empty heart. Later that same year, a new photograph appeared. A puppy, fast asleep, limbs flung out with the total surrender only puppies know. Underneath it, 3 words: Floki has arrived. Floki was a Shiba Inu, a fox-faced, proud, comically dignified Japanese breed, named after a wild-eyed shipbuilder from an old Viking saga. And in one of the most quietly funny confessions of his public life, the new owner admitted that Floki and little Marvin had not yet become friends. You could hear it between the lines, the patience of a man refereeing a rivalry between two small dogs in the same weeks he was refereeing companies worth hundreds of billions. Now come forward to the winter of 2023, to the hardest, loudest, most ridiculed chapter of his public life. He had just bought one of the most famous websites on earth, and the world had opinions. Advertisers were fleeing. Employees were leaving. Every day brought a fresh storm, and at the center of it stood a man being asked over and over the same mocking question. Who could possibly run this place? His answer arrived one February morning as a photograph. An office chair, a desk, and sitting upright in the chair, wearing an expression of profound executive seriousness, was Floki the Shiba Inu. The new boss, the caption declared, was amazing, much better than the old one. The world laughed, and it was meant to laugh. But look at the photograph again, the way you would look at a picture from a friend going through a hard time. What it actually shows is this: a man in the middle of a public siege whose every human interaction had become a battlefield, and who brought his dog to work. Because when the meetings turn hostile and the headlines turn cruel, a dog in the corner of the office does not change sides. He had learned that lesson a long time ago from 5 pounds of Yorkshire Terrier. And that, almost nobody noticed, is exactly where this story circles back to its beginning. Barely a month after that photograph, with the storm still raging around him, came the message this story opened with. Unprompted, in the middle of everything, he began to write about a dog who had been gone for years. He remembered the name and the joke behind the name. He remembered the warning he used to give visitors and the laughter and the ankles. He remembered precisely that it had been 15 years, not many years, not a long time, but 15. He called him awesome. And anyone who has ever loved and lost an animal recognized instantly what they were reading. If you have ever lost a dog or a cat who saw you through the hardest years of your life, you know exactly what that message was. It was not an announcement. It was the sound a heart makes when it finally sets something down. And it does not matter whether that heart belongs to a school teacher, a grandmother, or the richest man alive. The weight is the same, and so is the ache of carrying it alone. Grief does not follow a calendar. It waits. It waits through funerals of companies and births of rockets, through marriages and headlines and fortunes gained and lost. And then one ordinary day, while the whole world is shouting about something else, it taps a man on the shoulder and says, "Remember." We can only imagine him in that moment, perhaps late at night in a quiet office, the day's battles finally over. Perhaps something small triggered it, a photograph, a sound, a little dog in the street. Whatever it was, the man who goes silent about the things that hurt the most finally said the name out loud. 15 years of loyalty, years more of silence. And then, at last, a few warm sentences, the closest thing to a eulogy that a man like him may ever manage. So what do we do with all of this? The ankle-biting Yorkie, the rescue dog with the novelist's name, the knitted hat, the cool car waiting in the summer parking lot, the puppy in the office chair. We could dismiss it as trivia. Rich men have pets, it means nothing. But that would miss what is actually here. Because this is a man the world struggles to explain. Brilliant and reckless, generous and harsh, adored and despised, often in the same afternoon. A man who by his own admission finds human beings complicated, who has broken relationships and been broken by them, who has spent a lifetime being needed by millions and truly known by very few. And through that entire lifetime, at his feet, in his hallways, beside his desk, there have been animals, asking him for nothing but food, walks, and his presence. Never impressed by him, never disappointed in him, never reading a single word written about him. The whole world wanted something from him. The dogs only wanted him. That does not excuse his failures, and it does not settle the arguments the world will go on having about his name. But it opens a small window into the man behind the noise. Whatever else he has conquered or broken, there is a part of him, perhaps the oldest, loneliest, most human part, that a small dog reached more easily than almost any person ever has. He has said goodbye to companies, to marriages, to versions of himself. But the goodbye he carried longest and spoke about last belonged to a 15-year-old Yorkshire Terrier who bit the ankles of billionaires and was never once afraid. Some men guard their softest love with the most silence. If you have ever loved an animal who asked you for nothing and gave you everything, subscribe to Elon Musk, Untold Legacy, because the truest stories about this man are the quiet ones, and there are more of them still to tell.